Hi everyone, let's look at these new words for today. Cope. You must have heard this word a lot in your daily life, right? Cope. Cope means to deal successfully with a difficult situation. If the situation is difficult and you're dealing with it, it's called coping, right? Or cope. You can see this mother right here trying to deal with this difficult situation of her 3 kids, right? So what is she doing? She's trying to cope. It must be really hard to cope with 3 young children and a job. Now she has a job also and she's trying to cope also, right? So it must be really hard to cope with 3 young children and a job. It must be really hard to deal with such a difficult situation. In other words, cope. It's only been a year since he died. How's she coping, right? So let's say someone's husband died and the person is now under a very difficult situation, right? So how is she coping? How is she dealing with it? Victims cope with feelings of anxiety, pain, anger, and fear. That means victims, they deal with the feelings of anxiety, pain, anger, and fear. So cope, in other words, we can say is to deal, right? To deal with something is cope. But you are dealing successfully, that you are dealing with it and you're being successful in managing the situation, right? So that is cope, right? Copious, our next word is copious. Copious means in large amounts or more than enough. When something is there in large amounts, right? Or something is more than enough in amount, we say it's in copious amounts, right? They drank copious amounts of beer. That means they drank large amounts of beer or more than enough amount of beer. She took copious notes, right? She took notes in large amounts. These notes were not even supposed to be this long, but she took them in large amounts, like she took it in length. So she took copious notes, filling page after page. So she made notes in large amounts. She filled pages after pages, right? So she took copious notes, notes in large amounts, right? She supports her theory with copious evidence. That means she's trying to support her theory with a lot of evidence, evidence in large amount, right? So copious means large amounts, right? Copious, large amounts. They drank copious amounts of beer, large amounts of beer. Took copious notes, large amount of notes. She gave copious evidence to support her theory, large amount of evidence to support her theory, right? So copious is large amounts. Next is corroborate, right? Now corroborate means to add information in support of an idea, opinion, or statement, right? Recent research seems to corroborate the theory. That means seems to add information to our theory, add information in support of our theory, right? So corroborate means to add information to support a theory, an idea, an opinion, right? We have now new evidence to corroborate the defendant's story. Whatever story the defendant gave, they have new evidence to support that story. So that evidence is going to add information to support the story. So that means the new evidence will corroborate the defendant's story. Employment trends corroborate the dismal economic picture. That means if we have more employment going on, if we have employment trends, then it will support, or let's say this will be an addition to support the idea of the dismal economic picture, like support in the sense to help us remove this, sad, sorry state of not having jobs. So corroborate means to add information to support an idea. Okay, that is corroborate. Counterfeit. Counterfeit means made to look like the original of something, generally for illegal purposes. So if you are trying to make, first copy, second copy of stuff, you must have heard this word, no? This is a first copy, this is a second copy. So counterfeit is something that is made to look like the original object, but for illegal purposes, right? This watch may be a counterfeit, but it looks just like the original, right? So that means this watch is made to look like the original object. It is not an original watch. Not an original watch means, let's say there is a Rolex watch, right? Very expensive. But people nowadays are making counterfeits, right? They are making copies of the same watch, and these copies are fake, like they're cheap. So the watch may be a counterfeit, but it looks just like the original. So the resemblance is amazing. They look so similar to the original piece, but they can be counterfeits. You can say they can be fakes, right? Inspect the tickets carefully for possible counterfeits. That means you should check out the tickets properly to make sure they are not fake tickets. 2 women have been convicted of counterfeiting $100 bills. That means 2 women, they have been charged. They have been charged for faking the production of $100 bills. Like they have been counterfeiting, they have been making copies of $100 bills, okay, which is like a huge crime, right? So 2 women have been convicted of counterfeiting, or you can say faking, the $100 bills, right? So counterfeiting is making fake copies, right? Faking sounds a bit similar. So remember from this, counterfeiting is faking a certain product, okay? So counterfeit is anything that is not original, but is made to look like the original. All right. Let's look at our next word, counterintuitive. Now, counterintuitive means something that does not happen in the way you would expect it to, right? So being intuitive means you are kind of having a feeling inside your heart that this thing would happen like this, right? Intuition, you must have heard about intuition, right? That a feeling that this would happen. Some people have intuitions like this would happen, right? Counterintuitive, that means how you planned the thing and how you thought it will happen, it did not, right? So something that does not happen in the way you would expect it to. Steering a sailboat is counterintuitive. You push the tiller the opposite way to the way you go, right? So how you plan on going in a sailboat, you plan on going front, and you think because the sailboat goes in towards the front, so I'll have to do something which will make it go towards the front. I'll have to maybe push towards the front, but it is counterintuitive because to steer a sailboat, you have to push in the opposite way to go the way up front, right? So this is counterintuitive. This is not how you planned. You planned that you'll have to push forward to make it go further. But no, you have to push in the opposite way. So this is counterintuitive. New tax rules could produce counterintuitive results. Now, new tax rules, they got implemented. But what if they do not produce the results that the government is expecting? right? So counterintuitive means the results could be different than what you are expecting. Life is counterintuitive. Very true. Life is never what we expect it to be, right? So life is counterintuitive, right? So counterintuitive, something that does not happen in the way you expect it to. Counterintuitive. Okay. Crafty. Must have heard this word. Crafty. Crafty means skillful in argument, but likely to be dishonest. Or you can also say clever. Crafty people are those who are, let's say clever in arguing. They can also be lying, okay? They'll go to any extent to argue and, they're really skillful in it. They have the art of lying and winning in arguments by clever means. So people who are likely to be dishonest and skillful in arguments are crafty. Crafty can simply be said to be synonymous to clever. Okay. Remember Pinocchio's nose? So Pinocchio, whenever he used to lie, his nose would go long, right? So because he was being dishonest, he was being crafty, right? So crafty means clever, right? So I have some crafty ideas. Now, clever doesn't always mean in a negative sense. Sometimes having crafty ideas, that is sometimes having clever ideas, could be a benefit for you, right? Could be a benefit for your company, your business, your maybe your school life, your college life, studying, right? In general, if you have clever ways to study, you'll just benefit yourself, right? I have some crafty ideas. I have some clever ideas for getting around the regulations. That means whatever the rules are, whatever the regulations are, we'll try to get around them. Get around means we won't have to encounter the regulations. We will be able to skip them altogether. And I have some crafty ideas for that. I have some clever ideas for that. Okay. We ought to penalize that small body of crafty employers who desire to evade their responsibilities. And that means we should put penalty on a small, there is a small body of clever employers. Clever employers who are trying to evade their responsibilities, who are trying to escape their responsibilities cleverly, right? So crafty employers. She was a crafty old woman. That means she was a clever old woman, right? Clever old woman, crafty old woman, same. So crafty means clever or skillful in argument, but likely to be dishonest, right? That is crafty. Okay. Yeah. All right. Our next word is crestfallen. Now look at this guy, so crestfallen, right? All right. Crestfallen, you can definitely see his face fallen, right? So crestfallen means disappointed and sad because of having failed unexpectedly, right? So if you are disappointed, you are sad because you failed unexpectedly. You were not even expecting that. And suddenly something bad happened and now you're all sad because of it. You're disappointed. So that is called being crestfallen, okay? He looked crestfallen at their decision. Now, some people made a certain decision and it made you disappointed and sad. So you are crestfallen because of that, right? So crestfallen, being disappointed and sad because of having failed unexpectedly. He goes away crestfallen and she then realizes she's in love with him. So let's say a person came to a girl, he confessed his love, right? And then She rejects him. This guy walks away, and after he's gone, she realizes she's in love with him. So rejections can leave you crestfallen, right? So he goes away crestfallen. He goes away disappointed and sad because he failed unexpectedly at the proposal. Maybe he was thinking she'll accept the proposal, but it was an unexpected rejection and left him disappointed and sad, right? So that is crestfallen. He was very crestfallen when he learned that he didn't pass the exam. Now, there was a person who was expecting to pass the exam, right? But suddenly he gets to know that he did not pass the exam. So what was he? He was disappointed and sad. That means he was crestfallen, right? So crestfallen means disappointed and sad because of failing unexpectedly. That is crestfallen. All right. Let's look at our next word. Cunning. You already know what that is. That is a fox, right? And you all have heard the phrase being cunning as a fox, right? Being clever as a fox. So cunning is nothing but another synonym for crafty, right? And you remember crafty is a synonym for clever. So cunning means crafty or achieving one's ends by deceit or evasion, right? If you are achieving things in life by deceiving people, by evading your responsibilities, right? So that is called as cunning, right? Okay. You can simply say it is a synonym for craft. He was as cunning as a fox. Now, this is a simile, right? It is a simile, cunning as a fox. That means he was clever. In the story, the cunning fox outwits the hunters. Outsmarts the hunters, right? Runs away, does not get caught by the hunters, so she outwits the hunters, right? So the fox is so clever that it outwits the hunters. So cunning means crafty or clever. She was cunning enough to fool and rob me. She was clever enough to fool and rob me, right? So please beware of cunning people, all right? Beware of cunning people. Okay. All right. Our next word is cursory, right? Now, cursory means done quickly with little attention to detail. Now, in offices, in companies, there are certain employees who just focus on doing the work. They do not really pay attention to detail, right? To intricate details, to minute details. So if anything is done quickly with little attention to detail, we call it cursory, right? So cursory is an adjective. Something that is done quickly with little attention to the details, to the nitty-gritties, we say that the action is a cursory, right? He gave the picture a cursory glance. That means he gave the picture a quick glance without paying attention to the details, right? Like just looking like this, right? So that is a cursory glance, a quick glance without paying much attention to detail. A cursory glance at the data shows that it is more complicated. A quick glance, like the person has not even paid attention to details. The person just took a quick glance at the data and they realize the data is more complicated, right? That means a cursory glance at the data, quick glance at the data made them realize that it is more complicated. A cursory glance at the figures will tell you that the sales are down today. A quick glance, you wouldn't even have to go and pay attention to the figures. You just have to take a quick glance and you will get to know that the sales are down today, right? So cursory glance. Okay. So cursory means something that is done quickly with little attention to detail, right? That is cursory. Okay, let's look at our next word. You know, you can remember it like a cursor. You see a cursor blinking quickly, no? A cursor on the screen, it blinks quickly. So cursory is something that is done quickly with little attention to detail, right? Okay. Curtail. Curtail means to stop something before it is finished or to reduce something. If you are trying to stop something before its end, or if you're trying to reduce something, you are curtailing, right? He had to curtail his speech when time ran out. That means he had to reduce his speech or he had to stop his speech even before it got finished, right? So although he wanted to blabber for longer, but he decided on reducing his speech because the time was running out. So to curtail your speech means to reduce your speech or to finish it before. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates slightly to curtail inflation. Now, to reduce inflation, the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates on people's money, right? So to reduce inflation, they did this. The last government severely curtailed trade union rights. That means the last government severely reduced the trade union rights. The trade union were given more rights, let's say, previously, but the last government reduced the rights given to trade unions. Okay, so curtail means to reduce something. Okay, you can remember it like this: cut the tail. Okay, curtail, cut the tail to reduce it. So cut the tail, curtail. Curtail means to reduce something, right? Okay. All right. Now let's revise. Curtail. Curtail, as we just talked about, means to cut the tail, right? So cut the tail means to reduce something or to stop something before it is finished, right? That is curtail. He had to curtail his speech. He had to reduce his speech, right? Okay. Or you can also say he had to stop his speech even before it was finished. So curtail can be to reduce or can also mean to stop before something is finished, right? You can remember it like this: cut the tail, right? To reduce it. So curtail means to reduce something. Cursory. Just like a cursor blinks really fast, really quick, cursory is an action that is done quickly, right? That is cursory. So done quickly with little attention to detail means the action is a cursory. Just like a cursor which blinks quickly, actions that are done quickly with little attention to detail are cursory. He gave the picture a cursory glance. That means he gave the picture a quick glance. He did not pay much attention to details of the picture. He just gave the picture a quick glance, right? Cunning. Cunning is synonymous to crafty or clever. Cunning means achieving one's ends. One's ends means achieving your day-to-day agendas, your aims, your goals by deceiving people or by evasion, by evading your responsibilities, right? You can also say it is synonymous to crafty, right? So cunning, clever, crafty, same thing, right? He was as cunning as a fox. That means he was as clever or crafty as a fox. Okay, so cunning, clever. Crestfallen. Crestfallen. Fallen means the mood was fallen, the person's entire spirit was fallen, right? So crestfallen means being disappointed and sad because of having failed unexpectedly. You were not expecting failure, but you still failed, right? And you failed and now you are disappointed and sad. So that is called being crestfallen because of an unexpected failure. He looked crestfallen because he did not pass the exam. That means he was expecting to pass the exam, but he did not. So now he is disappointed and sad. So crestfallen, you can remember like someone's face has fallen, someone's spirit has fallen, right? So crestfallen means sad and disappointed, right? Mood, you can say. Crafty, synonymous to cunning, clever. Crafty means someone who's clever or skillful in argument, but likely to be dishonest. Now, these people would try to win the argument, even if they have to be lying for it, okay? So let's say I have some crafty ideas to evade this work, right? That means I have some clever ideas that would allow us to not be responsible for this work. We can just escape the work, right? So crafty is clever or cunning. Counterintuitive. Counterintuitive means if you plan something to be the way, a certain way, it did not go like that. Something that does not happen in the way you would expect it to. For example, life, right? Life is counterintuitive. We expect that this would happen, but generally it does not, right? So life is counterintuitive. Whatever your intuition is, it is always a counter of that, opposite of that, right? So remember it like this. Counter means opposite. Intuition means intuitive. You can remember why the word intuition. Intuition means you have a certain feeling that this will happen, but counter of it happens, opposite of it happens, right? So life is counterintuitive, right? Counterfeit, right? Now counterfeit means something that is not original but is made to look like the original object, and it is mainly for illegal purposes, right? If something is fabricated, okay, a fake or a copy is fabricated and it resembles the original object, and this is done, all this is done for illegal purpose, then we'll say it's a counterfeit. The watch may be a counterfeit. That means the watch may be a fake copy, right? It looks like the original, but it is not. And counterfeits are made for illegal purposes so that they can be sold off and, sold off in the name of being original, and you could earn the same price, right? But yeah, this is a crime. This is illegal. Counterfeiting is illegal, right? Corroborate. Corroborate means to add information in support of an idea, opinion, or statement. Recent research corroborates the theory. That means whatever research has been done, this information is going to add as a support to our theory. Whatever we thought, whatever idea we came up with, this research will support it, right? So corroborate means to add information in support of a theory, an idea, or opinion. Corroborate. Copious. Copious means in large amounts or more than enough, right? If you're drinking something in copious amount, that means you're drinking something in large amount. For example, certain people are, very inclined towards drinking cold drinks, right? Like aerated beverages, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all these things, right? So if they drink that in large amounts, you'll say they drink it in copious amounts, right? You can also say if someone is doing something in large amounts, that is also copious. For example, her copious efforts to please the teacher went to fail, or failed, simply were failed, right? Why? Because she was trying to impress her teacher in large amounts. So I'll say her copious efforts, her efforts in large amounts. Copious amount of efforts or copious efforts, large amount of efforts, they went to fail, right? You can remember it like this. My colleague, they tried to, they tried to see us, right? They tried to see us a lot. So you can remember it here, copious, okay? So you can say they tried to see us in a large amount, right? So copious is large amount, right? Okay. All right. Next is cope, right? Cope means to deal with something successfully, a situation that is difficult to handle, but you are still dealing with it, right? So cope means to deal successfully with a difficult situation. For example, this mother trying to cope with the situation of managing 3 kids and a job. She must definitely be having a job. So cope means to deal with a situation that is difficult, but you're dealing with it successfully. It's only been a year since he died. How is she coping? How is she dealing with this situation, right? So dealing with difficult situations is called to cope, right? Okay, guys, thank you.